In the stillness of the bedroom, only a sliver of moonlight slipped through the blinds. For years, the child had been plagued by a nameless fear, a monster lurking in the closet. Each night, the child would check under the bed, scan the room's corners, and then, with a trembling heart, peer into the closet. Every time it revealed nothing but old clothes and dust. Tonight was no different. The house was eerily quiet, save for the occasional groan of settling wood. With their parents out, the child was left alone with their growing aunties. As they lay in bed, trying to ignore the creeping dread, a faint rustling noise broke the silence. It was almost imperceptible, a soft shuffle followed by a muted scrape. The child's heart skipped a beat. The rustling came again, slightly louder this time. Panic set in. The child had always tried to dismiss their fears as mere imagination, but in the dark, it was hard to stay rational. Gathering what little courage they had, the child slid out of bed and approached the closet. Their hand trembled as they reached for the handle. The rustling stopped abruptly, replaced by a thick, suffocating silence. They hesitated, then pulled the door open. Inside, the closet was empty just as it had been every other night. The child sighed in relief, but as they turned to return to bed, a cold draft brushed their neck. They spun around, eyes scanning the room, but saw nothing. Suddenly, the closet door slammed shut with a force that rattled the walls. The child tried to open it, but it was stuck fast. A chilling draft filled the room, and a whisper, barely more than a breath, tickled their ear. It wasn't just a whisper, it was their name, spoken with an eerie, almost seductive tone. Come. The child turned slowly, and there, emerging from the darkness of the closet, were two glowing eyes. They hovered in the blackness, unblinking and unyielding. The creature's form was indistinct, shifting like shadows. The whisper grew more insistent, echoing around the room. Come. The eyes blinked slowly, and the closet door creaked open just enough for a skeletal hand to stretch out, beckoning from the void. The child backed away, heart racing, but the darkness seemed to expand, swallowing the room. The last thing they saw was the closet door closing softly behind them as if it had never been opened. Then the darkness closed in completely, leaving only silence and an oppressive chill. The classic fear of a monster under the bed taps into a universal childhood anxiety about the unknown and unseen dangers lurking in dark, hidden spaces. This fear often stems from the imaginative minds of children who, lying in the dark, begin to envision creepy creatures waiting to grab them as soon as they let their guard down. The space under the bed is particularly terrifying because it's a place that is close, yet out of sight, often only partially visible or completely obscured by darkness. This fear is amplified by the silence and stillness of night time, when shadows and faint noises can easily be misinterpreted as signs of something lurking nearby. It plays on the fear of the unknown, a primal anxiety that something is there even though it can't be seen or heard clearly. This classic fear has been a staple in horror literature and films, capturing the eerie idea that danger is closer than one might think, hidden just beneath a thin barrier. Lucy had always been afraid of the dark. Her parents tried nightlights, soft lullabies, and even an open door, but nothing seemed to work. Every night she felt an overwhelming sense of dread as soon as the lights went out. It wasn't the darkness itself that scared her, it was what might be lurking within it. One night, after her parents had tucked her in and kissed her goodnight, Lucy lay wide awake, staring at the ceiling. Her room was silent except for the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. Her eyes darted to the edges of her bed, where the darkness seemed thicker, almost alive. She heard a soft, almost imperceptible noise, like a whisper or a faint scratch. Her breath caught in her throat. She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to convince herself it was just her imagination. But then she heard it again, a little louder this time, a slow, deliberate scraping sound coming from underneath her bed. Lucy's heart pounded in her chest. She wanted to call out to her parents, but she was too scared to make a sound. The scratching continued, rhythmic and steady, as if something underneath was dragging its nails along the floor. She mustered all her courage and leaned over the edge of the bed, her hair hanging down like a curtain. "Who's there?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. For a moment there was silence. Then a low, gravelly voice replied, "Come closer, Lucy, I've been waiting for you." She gasped and jerked back, her eyes wide with terror. She could see nothing under the bed but blackness, an impenetrable void. The voice was calm and patient, with a chilling edge that made her skin crawl. "You don't have to be afraid," it continued. "I just want to play." Lucy felt tears well up in her eyes. She knew she should run, scream, do anything but stay there frozen in fear. But she was paralyzed, caught between terror and curiosity. Then something cold and slimy wrapped around her ankle. She screamed and tried to pull away, but the grip tightened, yanking her toward the edge of the bed. She clawed at her sheets, kicking and thrashing, but it was too strong. As she was pulled closer to the edge, she saw it, a pale, gaunt face, with sunken eyes peering out from the darkness beneath her bed. Its mouth stretched into a wide, grotesque grin, revealing rows of jagged, yellow teeth. "Got you," it whispered with a raspy chuckle. Lucy's scream pierced the silence of the night, echoing through the house as she disappeared beneath the bed, swallowed by the darkness. The room was still once more, the only sound the gentle ticking of the clock on the wall. In the morning, when her parents came to wake her, they found her bed neatly made, the room quiet and empty, with only a single chilling note left behind on her pillow. Gone to play, and beneath the bed all was silent. A man was driving home from work late at night when he saw a woman walking along the side of the road. He stopped to ask if she needed a ride. She said yes and got in the car. The man noticed that the woman was wearing a white dress and that she was shivering. He asked her if she was cold, and she said yes. He took off his jacket and gave it to her. They chatted for a while, and the man found out that the woman was on her way to a party. When they arrived at the party, the woman got out of the car and thanked the man for the ride. The man noticed that she had left her jacket behind, so he got out of the car and ran after her to return it. When he got to the front door, he asked the host if the woman had arrived yet. The host looked at him strangely and said, "No one has arrived yet. The party doesn't start for another hour." The man looked around and realized that the house was abandoned and that there was no sign of the woman anywhere. When he looked down at her jacket, he saw that it was covered in dirt and mud, as if it had been dragged through a graveyard.